Good morning and welcome to Valley Views. I'm your host, Glenn Edison. We're certainly glad to have you. And as always, we want to thank our sponsor, BTC Fiber, for promoting our show. And you can see our interviews on BTC Fiber's YouTube page as well as BTC Fiber's Cable Channel 18. And also we want to thank our sponsors, which are Needful Things General Store and Fall Creek Realty. And they're right there on Highway 127 as you go towards Dunlap, right before you get to the Bethel Church of Christ, right there on the right. So go by and see those folks and see what they have to offer. They have many fine things. And today we're going to be interviewing Ben Farmer. He's the managing partner of Farmer Morgan. And Ben, it's good to have you today.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you being with us.
Good to be here.
Let's give a little background on you and your company, and so people know a little bit about you.
So the company was formed in 2005. A good friend of mine, Randy Morgan, and I that went to school at Auburn University in the College of Architecture started the firm together. He was working for the city of Nashville, and I was working for a regional council in Northwest Alabama, and we started moonlighting. And from there, it gradually moved into formulating the business together. Had a great partnership. One of our first big projects, we had several small ones, of course, as everyone does. One of our first big ones was the Pikeville Streetscape project, so that everybody enjoys in downtown Pikeville. The Board of Aldermen and the mayor at the time of the city embraced our firm in doing that work, and we went through the planning process and all that public engagement into the architectural engineering design and construction package, bid that out, and then oversaw the construction with some really good local contractors. So that's how we started. That project was finished in 2009.
2009.
Yeah. And since then, we have grown to work in Mississippi and Alabama and Tennessee. We primarily serve local and state governments with some private sector entities involved as well, but probably about 80% of our work is governmental.
Governmental, well. And I know a lot of people don't understand when they hire like a firm like yours, there's a lot goes into it before they ever lay the first brick or dig the first hole. There's a lot of stuff goes into it.
Sometimes years. And that can start with the initial idea and the concept for whatever it is to be done. We generally like to start with a planning document of some sort, or conceptual master plan, if you will. Sometimes it's a transportation corridor plan. And from that plan, cost estimates can begin to be estimated for an overall budget, and then helping the client find those funds. And that alone, can be a year and a half process, putting the funding in place, and then moving that into design and going through the processes for permitting and approvals, and ultimately taking it to bid for contractors to then go into construction.
Right, and a lot of people don't realize sometimes even when you have to do soil samples, and the soil has to be right if you're going to.
That's correct.
Be in a certain area, or otherwise you can't do the project, right?
So geotechnical can be very key, either in vertical construction or horizontal. Vertical being buildings and those kind of things. Horizontal being transportation. Geotechnical is everything. You have to start there from go from the ground up, as they say.
Right, and that keeps a lot of people busy.
It does. So, there's ways to bridge bad soils, to work through those issues, and you just need to understand what the conditions that you're starting with to build back out of that, to have a project that's going to last that 30 plus years.
Right. And like I say, when you look at the design, you may say, well, this will work partly, but you have to change. There's a lot of things could be changed over that.
Over time, during that design process and those phases of going through that construction package, oftentimes as you work with the client, and if it's a governmental work, you're working with the public as well. And then there's the funding entities that sometimes, you may have local funds, but you'll have state and federal money as well. All of those partners, have a thought process of what should go on in that project and have a series of reviews for that. So the more partners you have, the more time it's going to take, and we talked about that. But also the longer it's going to take in the process and the feedback and what everybody would like to see and consider to be a high quality project.
Right. Because you don't just agree and then build it the next day.
No, sir, you do not, unfortunately. And that goes for the private sector as well. And in today's time frame, it's taken a little bit longer to get work projects, built and moving forward. If that has everything to do with material pricing as well as labor,
right.
And even on the permitting and design side. So we're seeing those time frames increase just a little bit, but the quality of the work is out there.
Yeah, and the materials, you talked about that. with materials now, you never know from one day to the next what
Material prices are going to be. You can estimate them, and sometimes, people feel that they may be worth more than what you thought.
Yeah. Yes. So that's another process, finding who can give you the right price.
And sometimes you'll have estimates before you go to bid. You may have an estimate that you originally started with. It was 2 years earlier. And you would think, well, Ben, why don't you go ahead and escalate that cost, and knowing that you're going to be 2 years out, and you're just not able to do that. Because funding entities will see that and say, well, you have an escalation in your cost, and why is that? And you're just not allowed to do it. You're often allowed to go back and ask for additional funding, but you're not allowed to escalate your costs knowing that you're maybe, a year to 2 years out.
Right, because most federal agencies or state agencies don't want to give you more money than they have to.
Correct. and that's, wise to be that way and be somewhat frugal with the efforts that are going on in the rural communities in these areas. So.
Now you mentioned the streetscape here in Pikeville. I know you've done some work with Dunlap too, right?
We have. Dunlap has been a good client of ours, as well as Sequatchie County, for a number of years. They've been very supportive within the valley of our firm and our personnel that are here working. So Dunlap's been a great client through multiple administrations, and we're very happy to serve them and always look forward to the challenges that they have within their transportation network and their utilities.
Oh, well, that's good. I know they're constantly looking at things to do.
They are. They stay very busy, and they're really good about going through that process of the initial planning and then moving in, finding the funding for that particular project, whether it may take, sometimes 7 to 10 years for a big project, and then moving it into design and ultimately construction. So they know what they want, and they're very methodical about the process and getting there and doing it the right way.
Well, there's a lot of dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's before you ever get started.
Yes, very much so.
Because when you're dealing with funding, for example, everything has to be filled out to a T. I mean, you can't miss anything.
You cannot. That's part of the process is what you're paying for is to make sure the details are there and that you're providing the contractor a quality set of construction documents to bid and to build on, and so that ultimately the city gets a project that again will last that period of time that it should, and the money that they're investing is well spent.
Right, that's a big thing. Well, with the services you offer, what are the things you can do for local communities? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, if you were here in Pikeville or Dunlap,
sure,
and you said, well, hey, this is something, if maybe they mention something to you, and you say, well, hey, this is one way to look at it, this is another way.
Very much so. Oftentimes you find that a community's issues are tied together with the transportation network, their neighborhoods, as well as their utilities, if you kind of sum it up that way. There's also economic issues and manufacturing and things that you're trying to promote and have that infrastructure in place. But what we encourage our clients to do is go through that planning process first and have a good set of planning documents. And sometimes, clients will feel like they're over-planned, but if they go through that process, start to select projects out of their plans to move through and find funding for and implement. It takes a little bit longer, but the quality and the impact of where they're headed in the long term pays off. In the rural areas in the Sequatchie Valley that we work in, we see that time and time again, is starting with that planning process. And so we encourage that to start with planning, move into design, and then take it to construction.
Right. Well, do you help them with their design, or do you just...
We do. Yeah, we do the architectural engineering and landscape architecture work for those clients. And it's oftentimes a project no longer is just a simple engineering project. It's often multidisciplinary, where you have multiple disciplines within the design profession working on a particular project, resolving whatever those issues are. So the days of a sole practitioner, whether it be a landscape architect or an engineer or an architect working on a project, seem to have changed. The issues are more complex, and so you have multiple disciplines within a project working, and our firm tends to provide all of those disciplines, and so we've become, over a period of time, a one-stop shop.
Well, and now more than used to be, you have to take in consideration all the handicap, whether it's inside a building with an elevator or if it's on a sidewalk where you're able to get a wheelchair up a ramp.
ADA accessibility has been in play since the 50s, definitely in the 70s when it went into law, and it's been in 2010 the Department of Justice reinvigorated what that was going to be about from a public standpoint and the obligations that public infrastructure and local and state governments had to do to achieve that accessibility and provide that for those individuals that needed it. And really, if you look at the demographics within, say, Bledsoe County, Sequatchie County, you can see the percentage of disability within the community and what those number of users are. These are not unknown numbers. I can't remember the percentages off the top of my head of the populations within, say, Sequatchie County, for instance, but it's a pretty high percentage. It's a normal percentage, but it's a lot of the population needs that accessibility. And you now have to have strong connections from the place that when you drive down the street, all right, you're going into a government building, from the point that you park to the point that you enter into that building itself has to be fully accessible. Whether that's a recreational component to a set of ball fields, a courthouse, a city hall, all those things have been modified. And so local and state governments are working very hard to implement their planning over a period of time to do just that.
Right, and that's, I know in the valley, I know that's, I won't say it's new to them, but it's something they've had to initiate because it wasn't there before.
And it's not new to them. And I think the day-to-day staff have always been dealing with it, and they take it on a project per project basis. So we will always get asked the question from our clients, wherever we're working, are we dealing with accessibility in this particular project? And it's a standard now as you begin to take on a project, are there accessible components that need to be a part of it? And how do you deal with those so that you're not building infrastructure that no longer serves the community? Right. It's not just about the federal order and the law, it's also about we have individuals in the community that need that access.
Right.
And if you approach it from there, I think everyone agrees very quickly that, okay, we've got to take that on. It's just how we do it and how we budget for it.
I know I've had some family that are disabled, that have children that are disabled, and they when they go to a park, they don't have, some of the places don't have a disability
a playground.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because of the type of disability she has, a little niece of mine, that they take special equipment, so.
And they're called, I believe, one term is boundless playgrounds, and they're providing that accessibility not only to the playground itself, but within it that it functions, but there's also equipment there that serves the various disabilities, if not all disabilities that are needed. I don't recall in Bledsoe County or Sequatchie County that they're directly boundless playgrounds, but I know there are playgrounds that start to meet those needs.
Right. I know they've talked about it, and I know that's in the process of talking and
it is
getting it planned because they think about that locally.
But there's a move to take that where a standard playground, if you will, meets those needs as well. And you'll find in the city of Dunlap, those playgrounds are starting to do that. So the Harris Park, which has been done in currently 2 phases, begins to meet some of those needs, the accessibility.
Right, they can go out to the water park.
Yeah, the splash pad.
Yeah,
sure.
They certainly enjoy that. I've been there watching them before, and it's just amazing how many children come during the summer.
It's a great project, and it really fills not only a city need, but Dunlap tends to serve as a regional city, and people come there to shop and recreate, and so it also serves those outside of the city itself in Sequatchie County and probably adjacent counties.
Well, and it could be that, like I say, the splash pad, some of the areas around don't have a splash pad.
No, sir.
And things like that, so they come to, like you said, they come to Dunlap to recreate and then to shop and whatever.
Yep.
I've met people that from out of town when I've been down at the park.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of nice to know that they come.
You can look at the license plates and figure it out.
Yeah, you certainly can.
And go to some of the local stores and look at the license plates, and you can tell who's shopping and from where and that kind of thing.
Hey, I know you probably can see a difference in Dunlap and Pikeville now that through the years of their planning, the things they've done over the years.
Yeah.
I know Dunlap's done a lot downtown, Pikeville's done a lot downtown. and it's different from what it used to be.
It very much so is, and therefore, from our perspective, professionally, it's for two different reasons. Where Pikeville is historically an agricultural town, and it served as has been the town center for Bledsoe County, but when the bypass came through, it changed the traffic pattern. What was somewhere around 5,000 to 7,000 cars a day coming down 127 Main Street, may have been more than that, stopped.
Yeah.
And you had storefronts and commercial businesses that didn't have that traffic, and so rather than worrying about the traffic, it had to reinvent itself. The business district did, and so it became a destination. And I think Mayor Cagle and the board are consistently working on downtown becoming a destination. You come and park and you move within that district.
Right.
Where the city of Dunlap has more of a transportation corridor as a spine that runs through the city.
Uh-huh.
And if you had tried, not too many years ago, to walk from, say, the courthouse to the school campus, your chances of being hit were really high.
Yeah.
And the city began to work on, one, identifying those issues, and then two, how they were going to solve those. And those are not quick fixes, and they can be very expensive. So today, you have, within the city of Dunlap, you have multiple trail projects. So the Coops Creek Greenway is a great example. There are others within the city that Mayor Huth has worked on. Moving you from, that area of the business district all the way up to the school campus. I'm pretty sure currently you can do that. You can walk from one end of town to the other, not directly on 127 Main Street, but you can move through the city from one end to the other, especially if you're, 13 or 14 years old and you want to just travel one end to the other without a car.
Yeah.
And the other side of that from a transportation standpoint is it reduces traffic trips. And so you're taking those kind of moments where you might be in, a residential neighborhood and rather getting in your car, getting on 127 and then going to another neighborhood that's 3 or 4 minutes away, you probably have a better chance of walking now. And so you're reducing the amount of cars on 127. It might be 10 cars, but it's a start.
Yeah.
The next project that the city of Dunlap has is the proposed RAISE grant, which is a major transportation project along Main Street, starting at Cherry Street up to the intersection of 127-28. And that funding is in place, and the city is going through the process of putting that grant agreement and those kind of things, working with the federal government on getting that money in place to then move forward with public engagement and design and so forth.
Yeah, that's going to be a big project.
It's huge. It's a game changer for the city. At that point, once it's complete, you should be able to walk from Cherry Street all the way up to 127-28 and shop along the way and whatever you want to do. So you'll have a multimodal corridor, which is before has been very vehicular driven.
Right.
So that's going back to those downtown approaches. Dunlap's has been having to deal with about 17,000 cars a day. The city of Pikeville on the bypass is dealing with about 3,000 to 5,000 cars a day. So those different approaches, are just different scales. So the same approach, they're just a different scale in how to resolve a problem. And one is not better than the other. And they're both, carry weight in the community and the importance of that. And having that accessibility and ADA accessibility throughout the corridor itself.
Right, I know that's been a big problem with, I've seen the electric wheelchairs and the motorized wheelchairs, and they're going right where cars go, and you're thinking, man, that's dangerous.
Yeah. Well, when they're inside the highway, if you will. Yeah, there's not a separate elevated pathway or sidewalk or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it can be difficult, and so providing that accessibility within those projects, not just for pedestrians, but when you do the crosswalks and all those things, making sure they're fully accessible, and that's one of the requirements, but that's also one of the goals of the city of Pikeville as well as Dunlap and most other clients. They're like, we've got to take care of it, make sure that portion of our community is being served as well.
Well, and since we're talking about Dunlap and Pikeville, I know both of those mayors and their city council, I know their concern is truly the citizens of their cities. And, they're out there, they truly want to do what's best for the citizens. I've been around them enough to know that.
I agree. I've watched it as well and been directly involved in it, and see them moving forward. And it is not easy to do, to go out and find $15 million to revitalize your transportation corridor is not an easy feat.
No.
And that took multiple administrations for the city of Dunlap to implement that project. And the changes that it's going to have and the opportunities it's going to create are not going to be an easy thing to do. That's going to take a lot of public engagement and everyone agreeing that this is how they would like to move forward. And the same goes for the city of Pikeville and the Board of Aldermen and Mayor Cagle. They're all in a great spot to transition to what they're going to continue to become.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, that project in Dunlap, the road project there, that's going to take a lot. There's going to be sidewalks and I think they're going to widen Coops Creek Bridge. I think
that's correct. Yeah, that's a component of that too. It doesn't widen the travel lanes as much as it provides width. It does widen the travel lanes, but it doesn't add an additional lane. Because if you did, where would you put the rest? When you came off the bridge, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
You're kind of framed up by the buildings that are there, right? And the existing properties that are capitalizing on that traffic count and people moving through there. But very much so, I agree with you.
And it's always good to have people like you to help these local communities, because with your knowledge, you can say, well, this is not what you really want to do, that you need to go this, because sometimes, because I'm not in that field, I might think, well, this is a good idea. And then you may, wait a minute, here's something you need to consider.
And, we're very blessed to be able to work at home. That is something that the local governments have not always allowed us to do. And sometimes it's hard to work at home. I can remember when we started the Streetscape project in Pikeville, the decision was made that my business partner, Randy Morgan, would run that project. I didn't need to be directly involved in it because I was from here.
Yeah.
And so there would be some difficult decisions that needed to be made, and Randy did a great job with that, and working with all the local business owners, as difficult as it was. That was in the recession as well. So right after '07.
Wow.
Very hard times. So to be able to work locally and do utility work as well as downtown redevelopment and planning, economic analysis, we're very blessed. It's also nice to be able to travel to other states, work within those communities and being accepted and welcomed there. And that's a nice thing, and it gives us some diversity. You can't have a very multidisciplinary firm and relying just on the governments within the Sequatchie Valley. So having that opportunity within those other states to do that same type of work has been a blessing. We learn from that, and we get to bring that knowledge back back home too. So that has been really good for us in being able to learn from other projects and kind of come back home and share that information when asked. So.
Well, now, do you have other maybe not partners, but other associates in your other offices?
Yeah, we have about 13 employees right now. So multiple engineers, landscape architects, construction management and inspection work. So it tends to be, we do planning, and then we do the design work and bidding, and then we do our inspection on jobs. And so that's one of the things with our clients. They like to see us go all the way through that process so that the ideas that are developed here end up getting constructed here. Oftentimes, if you take something and you have a concept and a plan, when it's handed off to the next individuals, although it's written, the idea may not be the same in transitioning. Right. It gets lost in translation. It's like telling a secret around the room. It's going to come back to you different. So we're involved in all that process, and that same goes for construction. Having that design intent get built is very important.
Sure.
And also, reaffirming what the client is paying for is also being built. And so testing those materials and providing daily inspection and construction has been important.
Right, because they wouldn't like it if you won the bid, then you didn't show up, you just sent somebody up. They'd want to...
Yeah, so ours is professional services. And so, those contractors are contractors in the area and the region and from other states that tend to bid our work. They like that set of drawings. They know what the expectations are from us. We tend to be very straightforward and expect a high quality product, and we just don't take much less.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah,
I'm sure people around here appreciate that.
I hope so. We try. So it's really nice to be back home after being gone for almost 20 years, and realizing that, we were traveling anyway, and you might as well be at home and work here and work in other places as well and raise our family here. So it's been good.
Well, that's great. Was there anything else you'd like to share with us that we haven't talked about?
I don't think so. It's been a great opportunity to talk about Farmer Morgan and what the firm does. I would say we look forward to seeing the educational system in the region continue to grow in multiple counties as we look to hire people that are locally, encourage them to go into the design and construction fields. And I hope that young people will continue to look at that and then look back home and see that they can have a good living and work here and hopefully work for us. So,
Well, good.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate you a lot. And again, folks, you can see us on BTC Fiber's YouTube page as well as BTC Fiber's cable channel 18. And again, we'd like to thank our, our sponsors, Needful Things General Store and Fall Creek Realty. They're right there on 127. So go by and see those fine folks. So until next time, have a great day. Hey everybody, this is Glenn Edison from Valley Views. We appreciate you watching our shows, and we would like for you to like, share, and follow us on Facebook, as well as like and subscribe to our YouTube page.